Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of the Healing Brothers podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Brandon Jones, and I'm joined by the legend himself, Sam Simmons. What's going on, Sam?
Oh man, I'm good. Getting ready to come from underground here pretty soon. Uh, you know, uh, uh, been slow in that. Getting these requests to show up live at different gatherings. Um, Trying to look at a different strategy in terms of my work. In terms of the work has always been focused on uh, our community, the African American or Black community, whatever folks want to say, around the effects of trauma on we talk about men, but on the community as a whole, and really taking a more serious look on what direction I want to go in, especially after our recent conference. Um, some things came up in my mind about things around generational trauma, how it shows up, the whole thing about this coming out the backside of COVID. um what does that really mean for our community, and what does that look like? And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, today. This got a lot of things that I've been thinking deeply about in terms of the community as a whole, community going forward, the future of our community, our approaches to the issues that are happening in our community, and the prices our community is paying. And there's been some pluses. I mean, I think being that we're a community that talks to, at least amongst a lot of the young folks, entrepreneur work and that kind of stuff, especially around the use of online pieces. And so this been having time to really just think about the community, and trying to broaden my thinking in moving forward around this topic. I know that was a long answer, but that's the truth.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think, though the pieces that you touched on are pieces that have been in many people's minds, and people are pondering and trying to figure out what the hell is going on, especially locally here in the Twin Cities. I mean, it is all over the place, man. Like I'm at a place where I'm about to be just done. Like I don't like I don't know what else to do. Um, we have the continuing protesting and what they're calling unrest in Uptown. That has turned into a complete just like circus over there. We have, unfortunately, is it Danella Frazier, the young woman who recorded George Floyd's death. Her uncle ends up dying in a high-speed car chase last week. Now, he wasn't in the chase. He was just in another car, and the police end up crashing into their car, and complete accident. And the way that the the way that the community is responding, I'm so confused, Sam. I'm trying to figure out. They're making it seem like the police officer intentionally killed him, and I'm just like, this is this is getting crazy, man. Like I don't know what the responses are. It was obviously an accident. Somebody did die. There needs to be some accountability there, but we can't take that as an intentional kill. So we got that going on. We have continuing community gun violence happening. Another young person killed just yesterday, and we have
Was the young person killed, or was they just wounded?
I believe that young person, died. But let me double.
Initially, they took the young person the police took the young person to the emergency room. That's how critical it was. So the you know, I haven't heard this morning if the child passed or not, and maybe they
Let me
have,
see if there's any.
but I knew it was
Still in the hospital. Still in the hospital.
yeah, the guy knew it was pretty critical because, like I said,
3-year-old boy.
it was so critical. The policeman decided to go and take the child to the hospital and not wait for the ambulance.
Ambulance, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty critical. But still, you know, when you involving children, and unfortunately, when children are involved in getting shot in these situations, people want to take it more seriously, even though we had multiple people shot.
Yeah, there were 2 adults
and
too.
you know, and then you have, I mean, there's like a you know, this the warpath against women around the city. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
It's crazy.
yeah, you know, and that don't get talked about enough at all. You know, I mean, you know, it's like woman killed. Oh, the community don't have to worry, you know, because they know who, you know, they know it, who, you know, they pretty much know who did it, right? And it's this whole thing around you can't leave me, you can't live your life without me, kind of deal, craziness. The ultimate example of uh, domestic violence and terror that has been going on in communities around the country, but in ours for years. And what is it? The number? Is it the number one? At one time, it was the number one cause of death for Black women was between the 18 and 35.
Intimate partner violence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's still true, but it was not too long ago. Like,
Right.
but within the last 10 years, that was a true statistic. And, and that goes into kind of what our topic is for today is as we continue through this pandemic, how has the pandemic played a role on Black people? Not necessarily illness, not necessarily getting COVID-19, but what socially or psychologically or a combination of both. What has this done to us? I feel like things are on an uptick all across the board. Domestics, financial issues. I mean, just some of the stuff I'm seeing has been wild. And I don't know if this has highlighted something that has already been going on or revved it up or what, but we are in a very catastrophic state. And it's not just the Twin Cities, it's all over the place. I mean, every major city you could think of where they have a sizable Black population, people are wilding out, man. I don't know what's going on in Chicago, and you know, conservatives love talking about Chicago. But in Chicago, one of the things that are happening is these highway shootings. Like I get all the other shootings and stuff, but that's like it's a different type of shoot now where people are getting shot on the expressway. Like that is some bizarre. Like what the hell? So you can just be literally driving down like here in the Twin Cities 94, and people are shooting like that. That is crazy. So there's a lot, man.
Yeah, but the thing is you know, if I'm, you know, a Black person looking at this, it ain't just Black folks shooting folks on the freeway.
Yeah, I seen in Chicago. Yeah, there's some Latinos doing it too. Yeah.
Oh well, then you got
folks.
the situation in, I think it was in California, where the white boy was shooting out of the car and hit the little boy in the back seat on the freeway.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So you're saying this freeway shoot thing is just a phenomenon across the nation? Yeah, I've seen a lot of Black bodies and
yeah.
Black
Well, and I'm not, you know, debating that. I'm just, you know, you talk about how, you know, we are coming out on the other side of this, but I see a national piece as well about how we're coming out on the other side of this.
Sure.
You know, I see a great deal of impatience, you know, for a great deal of people not caring about other people. So empathy for other folks. and I mean, where people will just downright run you the hell over,
Yeah.
right? In their cars, try to run you over, uh, um, in lines. I mean, it's just this being intolerant of other people. So
Yeah.
I only say that, because it's like, well, brother, you supposed to be talking about black people. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about black folks, but I'm just saying in the bigger picture, and people, we talked about Black Lives Matters during the lockdown and that kind of stuff. And what you're seeing is, they talk about the new normal. And one of the things I've noticed is people are so much in a hurry to go back to normal, which wasn't good for us at all in
Yeah.
many ways, right? And the hell to this Black Lives Matter, and then on top of that, not and I understood the problem with the defunding the police, but police departments around the country are getting more money than they had before, right? So when the mainstream gets scared, everybody pays, right? And all logic go out the door, and so and the inability as a people to deal with both right? You still got to do something about the disparities in policing and all these other disparities. And so the other piece is, when we talk about disparities, is we have all these disparities that all of a sudden people recognize, which just blows me away, as much money that was been spent on researching disparities, that it tells you that whatever we were doing and spending money on before COVID was going down the tubes for folks to be so damn surprised about the disparities within the community, right? So now, with that said, let's talk about black folks. Okay, let's talk about us. So if you talk about all the craziness here, and one of the things I always say about Minnesota, it's easier to see it here because of the makeup of our community, right?
Sure.
If it's happening in here, it's happening a lot of times. It might not look the same, but it's happening all over, right? And in other black communities, we got a small black community here, but in larger black communities, it's happening, and it looks a little different, and it is on a different scale, but it's there, right? And I think folks came out the other side, especially a lot of young folks, but there's some weird stuff going on with old people too. We can't deny, because I've seen some crazy stuff with old folks, right, in our responses. But our responses have a lot of trauma attached to it, historical trauma attached to it, right? And so you talk about what you're seeing in terms of, we got folks taking over corners at night, racing cars, doing spin outs and everything on main streets, shooting out cars in the middle of the street with cameras going on, like they really don't give a shit, right? And I believe they don't. And that just like anything else, the focus ends up being on us, right?
Right.
And some people say we just take it to a whole nother level, and it's like in Uptown, the gun or the arm that came out that car looked black to me, and see, I don't know if you know about this situation. It didn't end up on the news, but Reg from Channel 4.
Yeah, Chapman. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on Facebook talking about him and his cameraman was driving down the street, and there was a on, I think maybe Lindale or something like that, and folks was a car came up and started shooting at another car on the street.
Dang.
Yeah. And he got the ducking and dodging. And again, this is stuff you don't hear about on the news that is actually happening.
It's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So some people be talking about, well, Sam, why don't you come about the basement? Shit, I'm just fine down here in the basement.
Safe and secure.
I mean, I could still do my little group from the basement. Matter of fact, my group works better from the basement than it did live, which is interesting. The plus, it's like, please. And then you got old folks and young folks fighting over conversations, and then we have the situation where Bill gets out of jail and Mr. Cosby, Dr. Cosby gets out of jail, and our responses to that has been off the chain too. It's like, again, two things can be true at the same time, right?
Right.
He admitted drugging women. What y'all talking about? He ain't guilty. Right? I seen a piece where Joe Brown, the judge Joe Brown, was fighting with a young brother about, Mark
Lamont Hill. Mark Lamont Hill.
Yeah. Talking about, well, he's not guilty, and he started blaming the women. They're just trying to, get press and take a brother down and all like that. And if it wasn't guilty in court, he ain't guilty nowhere else. And it's like, whoa. I mean, if you just look at it, it looks downright, at times it looks hopeless.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't know what direction to take with some of the, our public thought process is scattered, man. I'm confused. Half the time I don't know if somebody's getting canceled or we're celebrating people. I don't know what the hell is going on, man. We're not on accord on anything but trauma. That's the only thing is we're all traumatized. And even that gets crazy because now we want to do a trauma Olympics and see who's more of a victim than other people, man. I don't know where to go with any of this stuff, and it's bad. I can't even figure out who's a voice of reason to even go through some of this craziness.
Yeah, well, the thing is if we want to talk about being canceled, if you're a halfway voice of reason, you ain't getting much press.
Yeah. That is very true.
Okay. But the thing is a lot of this stuff was going on before, it just been magnified. It's like we got to catch up. We got to catch up on our year of not being able to do crazy shit. We got to catch up with it in the next 2 or 3 months.
So maybe that's what's happening.
And then take it to a whole nother level. But the thing is, as much as I love you, being able to do things and talk to more people around the country, doing stuff like this, using YouTube, I'm not on Snapchat, but you got people on Snapchat and Twitter and all these other kind of stuff. And, and I, as an old guy, and I praise being an old guy, because some people are like, oh man, age ain't but a number. No, I'm old, and I'm an old black man, and I enjoy being an old black man, right? And an old black man with a few dollars, so I can start taking me some vacations and not worry about if I'm gonna get my rent paid and all this other kind of stuff to go along with that, right? Yeah. Get my little government check. I'm good because I didn't even think I was gonna live long enough to get my little government check. But, I get my little government check now, so I'm good, right? But I'm worried. I'm very, very worried about the community and the community response to things, not just outside the community, within the community. And one of the things that is becoming more visible, and I know I started I talk in circles sometimes, which throws people, but I'll come back. But when I talk about online, being able to voice your opinion, being on Facebook, being on YouTube, and the other kind of stuff, is the negative side of that is some of this violence is fed by that, right? It's like it's like I entertain myself on other people's suffering because I don't have a forward-looking view of the world or of my world, right?
Bingo.
And we've talked about this, and it was early when we were trying to put this show together because I looked it up. I think it was in December when we were testing this all out around survival stress management. Living your life in the moment. And when people live their lives in the moment, consequences is not important. And this is one of the things I really think people in law enforcement need, if they really give a damn. I'm gonna be a role model, as I tell my guys every now and then in group. If I get to cursing, I said, well, let me take that back, brothers. I'm gonna be a role model. And they start laughing at me, like, you was telling the truth, but still, there's different ways to say this, amongst proper folks, but law enforcement, if they really cared, they need to pay attention to what's really going on. And I know that law enforcement, we got to understand, law enforcement is about dealing with now. It ain't about dealing with even though they should, in the bigger picture, think about not just now, but what's coming and what's really behind this thing long term. But we have a generation that has gotten to a point that if I don't see my life of value, how am I supposed to see somebody else of value, right? And especially when I talk about reflective trauma, I look at you. And especially if I look at you and you look like me, and I don't think much of me, well, I'm going to think much of you in your life.
Right.
And then on top of that, if I look at you, and this is a bigger problem in our community, but definitely, if I look at you and you're doing better than me, I don't look at you as, good job, brother. I look at you as, oh, you think you better than me. And I ain't say shit to you. Right? I look at you and you doing better than me. I want what you got, but the thing is not only what you got make me feel bad about me, I'm gonna take what you got.
Right.
And all of that is we could talk about historical, that is cumulative trauma, right? And people, I don't think understand sometime, or don't hear me when I say the last 40 years of trauma was a different type of trauma that our community has been exposed to.
I would agree.
And we're still suffering repercussions because our way of dealing with trauma in the past is we're resilient, roll with the punches. This is just the way it is. And we're not going to stop and address it, right? That is not happening now. So we got folks 40 and younger who done dealt with layers of trauma, not just in the way we address the society as a whole from a victim position, right? So if you address things purely from a victim position, you ain't responsible for shit. It's all happening to you. So you ain't looking at how you contribute to what's happening to you, right? And we talk about, again, living life in a moment, the consequences that, everybody, now, it's all great to talk about, law enforcement and all this other kind of stuff and how it's affecting the money, right? It always comes down to money. right?
Right.
And you know, and that's why some protesters believe that if you don't destroy property, you won't get no attention,
Right.
which feeds that, you know. But in the long run, it doesn't do the community that you just destroyed, that you live in, any good. Because like right now in my community, man, people with money are cleaning up. They're building beautiful new. We got a state of the art new Wendy's over in our community, right? It's like, yeah, you burnt the Wendy's down, but they had insurance. And it's like, okay, we know in our community was a mixed community, so it's like it's on and popping. You thought gentrification was happening before? Oh, it's on and popping now, right? So that idea of not having a long-term kind of look at our problems, and again, when I say law enforcement is the same thing, you know, I heard our police chief say something, and it was kind of corny, but it was almost on point. You know, when you don't love yourself, you will kill you will harm other people. Basically, what he was saying, and that's like, whoa, right? That's what he said. And he didn't put no color on it or nothing. He just said that. That was after the announcement around the last child getting shot, right? And you know, and the other thing is, when a community got to work so hard to have peace in its community, you get wore out. Because the people working real hard to keep peace in our community, a lot of times is the same people, right? And we as a community have to come up with a different plan and come up on the front side of this as well. And so my question has been to a lot of my colleagues, why is it that as a community we have a hard time really truly addressing our trauma? Or even having a honest conversation about how this trauma is having a long-term and dangerous effect on, you know, because trauma affects people's behavior, trauma affects people's conversations, trauma affects how we parent, and I still believe that if we could get an honest handle on our trauma in our community, we could see different pieces in terms of how we address the mainstream, right? You know, how we address so-called white supremacy. And, you know, people say, well, so-called. Yeah, white supremacy exists, but our response to it cannot continue to be from a victim position.
Man, that you can't even say that without getting in trouble, though.
I don't care. I'm too old to care.
No, I'm not saying like you can. I mean, like when people say that, you get name called. You get put into a position or a place where you are, you know, you're pretty much blaming the victim, is what other people would say. But you're going to be called a coon or Uncle Tom or all these types of things when you're saying that yes, you've been victimized by the system, but if you carry on from a victim position or a victim mentality, it does you no good as far as progress and moving forward. And you're right.
And the thing is, it does benefit some people, you know, and I'm not going to mention some names that it has benefited from,
man,
you know, because, you know, they some scary folks, you know, you start mentioning their names, you know, other people come get you. You know, it's like the, you know, the gang wars or the rap wars. You know, the person that you're talking about might not come get you, but the people who look up to that person come and get you. You know, how you talk about them. And next thing you know, and then the person can sit back, well, I don't condone violence and I didn't put them out there. But, you know, you got fanatics out there following your ass, you know, and so it's another thing about people who do not deal with again, that trauma and living in the moment. So people make emotional decisions in the moment and then want to cry about it later on. You cannot continue to make the emotional decisions and feel like that's not going to have a major effect on your future.
Right.
It's like the other day I was talking to some guys. I said, you might, in the middle of an argument, and we were just talking about in their relationships, in the middle of the argument, you sitting there arguing and she's sitting there arguing, or your partner sitting there arguing about who is right, and you spending time on who is right, and you make a decision trying to force that person to recognize you being right, and mess up your future.
Right.
So do you let that idea of who is right in the moment with the idea of we can deal with this later, have a future later, you know, and then you find out later on you wasn't right. You was just damn emotional. You wasn't right.
Yeah.
Or matter of fact, in some cases, neither one of you is right. Y'all was both being emotional. In every relationship we have, this in our partner relationship, our community relationship, our relationship with this world called America, this society called America, you know, we're losing our babies, and then we want to talk about, you know, you know, look at your tagging up. What are we willing to do? And this whole ideal, you know, I am, and I don't even, this might get me in more trouble than anything else. This whole thing around poverty and violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Poverty and violence. I don't know how I feel about that. We've been, if you go by the narrative we get, we've been poor for a long time. But I see a whole lot of folks with knots of money in their damn pocket.
Hey man, it's the PPP loan scams, man. Scammers, they out here.
Well, and that's fine, but I'm not even talking about scammers. I'm talking about how we don't handle our money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what about, okay, so 30%. Well, you know, and I understand what they're talking about. You know, where you're seeing a lot of the violence is supposedly in poor communities, right? Mm-hmm. But our communities are not the only poor communities,
right?
Right, and there's people in those communities, those Black communities, who are not probably making as much money as they need to, right? We're talking about working families trying to make a living, trying to do it right. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be something deeper than just the poverty. And some people see poverty as a trauma too.
Yeah.
But even some of that stuff about how we think about ourselves can contribute to generational poverty.
Right.
So I you know, yeah, I'm sitting in this basement just losing my mind behind some of all this stuff, man.
So are you saying, so
you trying to figure out what the hell I'm saying? Me too.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm trying to ask a question to get you to go a little deeper. So if it's not poverty, because you know, in the academic world, there was this theory called the broken window theory, and pretty much what it's saying, what you're saying is, you know, you have high crime in areas where there's high poverty. So the broken windows theory was pretty much just this piece of, you know, when you're in neighborhoods where things are broken, not fixed, cars are on the side of the road with the tires missing and all that type of stuff, then you're going to see poverty, or you're going to see violence increase in those type of neighborhoods. But what I hear you saying is, you know, even within a neighborhood, we have a lot of people who are still, especially in Minnesota, you'll have in our quote unquote impoverished neighborhoods, you got people who are professionals who live there, teachers, all types of stuff. There's money in those places. But are you saying that there's a cultural element there. And not saying that black people are more disproportionately into violence, but there's something about our culture where we've accepted that violence is a norm, or violence is a way to behave amongst one another. So are you saying that, or what do you mean by there's something more than just the poverty?
Well, the thing is when you start talking about violence being the norm, say that we look at America as the mother of behavior. Okay. Violence is the norm of America.
Correct. Agreed. We don't like, if you do something wrong that we don't like, we will come to your country with weapons. We will with technology. So we don't send a drone. We don't have to send people anymore.
Well, I'm just talking about here. I mean, America based on violence, right?
Yes.
Violence and power and control. But the thing, but the thing is when we start talking about, violence within a community that has this constant trauma that has been experienced, and we've been rolling with the punches, and we're easily triggered, and so if you're easily triggered, you'll do stuff you regret in the moment. And then if you do this generationally, you end up with a generation who is not, who you talk about being emotional. We end up with a generation of folks who are either consistently scared, and then get tired of being scared, and consistently feel alone, right? And don't feel the investment in the community because they don't feel like the community invested in them, right? And this is it. And when you roll with the punches, it's like when you put a snowball at the top of the mountain and you let that sucker roll, it gets bigger. And when and if you are in the way when it ends up at the bottom of the hill, you're done.
Right.
If you don't do nothing about that snowball at the top of the hill, folks are going to lose their lives. Right. Right. And some folks, what they do is they just move. Right. And some people who want to stay and invest in the community, they stay, or they feel like, because again, our communities here in Minnesota are very different.
Right.
To compare to other communities, larger Black communities. We do have people who who utilizes the system, the very system that we talk bad about, against itself. But you got to understand the system. You cannot ignore the system. You got to understand how it works to disrupt it. Right? You have to have a plan, a long-term plan,
right? Not
in the moment plan, right?
Is it a plan if it's in the moment? It's just responding.
but I'm just saying. I mean, so we got a lot of folks, because young folks are tired, and they're tired, and they're tired, and some of them young folks are still trying to show old people a certain amount of respect, right? Yeah. And I don't know if all of us deserve that kind of respect. Yeah, you heard it. I don't know if we all deserve that kind of respect.
Okay.
I mean, because if you still talking tired ass shit, you might not need that kind of respect.
What is some of the tired old shit that people keep talking? Sam? I hear it, but I want to hear from you, like somebody who's of the generation of the tired old shit that is stated.
Well, the thing is that the white man is all the white man's fault, and
pull your pants up. Pull your pants up, put a belt on too.
Yeah. That whole old tired stuff of talking crazy about young people. You don't vote, you don't act right, and you watch too many shows, reality shows. Look how you act on TV and all this other kind of stuff, and and I understand all that, because some of that I don't watch that crap, but they making money. Them babies are making money. Now all money is good money. Right? That old, back in the day, we were a community and we was this and we cared about kids, and what that kid just needs is a whooping, and then you get people on there mimicking this old shit about the Miss Grace down the street could if you acted up, she could beat you. Yeah, Miss Grace didn't like children. Shit. I hate it when the woman down the street called herself going to chastise me, and she had my mama's daddy, my daddy walking out her back door. What the hell you talking about? Because we got to evolve. And I'm not saying all that community, we love hunky, but you got to get to a point where you got to realize that has to be adjusted. Even if it worked, you got to also understand that a lot of our communities were contained communities. All we had was us. It was us against them, right? I just seen a piece on Channel 2 about the portraits of America, and they did one on Detroit, and they talked about the Detroit riots, and they talked about this brother who owned a record shop there, who was down for the community, and and all the other kind of stuff, and how heartbroken he was when the riots came. They burnt and looted his record store.
The store, yeah.
And he never came back. So those tactics, in the long run, do they benefit us or benefit other people? I do believe that if we can get a handle on all this kind of stuff that has affected us, if we deny our trauma, we deny our humanity. I don't even know if people understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand what I'm saying.
Well, what is Black humanity? Because it goes back to what we said earlier about the victim position piece. If we always see ourselves as victim, what does our humanity look like without it being recognized by white people? Like, what does our humanity look like for us to us? I don't think we know.
And that's a good question, because if your humanity got to be validated by who you has deemed the perpetrator, you got a problem.
Exactly. That's my whole point.
You got a problem. Let's break it down, because I'm working on a project as we speak, trying to answer that question. Why? And some people say, we don't deny our trauma. We say the word all the time. Yeah, you've been saying the word for what, the last 5-6 years? We need to deal with our trauma, and then we walk straight to we're resilient. We don't really stick in that area, that uncomfortable area, but what that look like.
Yeah, what are the phases to do that?
Right. And in doing my understanding, because my whole thing is I've been doing this work around community trauma, Black male trauma, real hard for the last 13, 14 years. And I'm not seeing, and that might just be my selfishness, the progress around that I would like to see, that concept. And maybe the concept is bad. Who knows? Okay. I could be old man full of shit. Right. But if you look at our situation from the standpoint of, if you understand, and I know this is going to irritate probably some people with PhDs and some people would not. If you look at our situation and you equate it to an abused child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that abuse, one of the symptoms of an abused child, in terms of denying their trauma as an adult, is wanting the perpetrator to say they're sorry and spend all their life and effort to make the perpetrator say they're sorry, down to not protecting themselves, harassing the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
And spend all that time instead of investing in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What does it get them? Right? In some cases, early death.
Yeah.
And a lot more trauma.
Yep.
If you deny the trauma, it still shows up in your parenting. It still shows up in your relationships.
Right.
Right? If I don't deal with some of this stuff, how do I trust another individual to be in a relationship? Right? And you see a lot of that in people all the time.
Right.
And being disconnect yourself from the whole trauma belief, that what has been the trauma anyway. Have this sometimes this unhealthy bond with the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
With that system that perpetrated you.
Yep.
Right? Feel overwhelmed. Don't want to deal with your part because you don't understand that your part is triggered by that.
Right.
And the big piece is because the perpetrator, and we'll say systems or whatever, has made you the bad guy.
Right.
And everything that's wrong, so-called wrong in America. You're so afraid of dealing with your pain because if you dealt with your pain, that validates them and what they say about you. So you don't deal with your pain. And you want to accuse them of not treating you humanely. But again, if I don't deal with my pain, then I don't even treat myself humanely.
Right.
Do you know how freeing the full truth is? What can you do to me once I got the full truth?
Right.
So if I'm afraid of the truth, I got another way to control you. Another way to control you. Another way of not doing what you need to do for yourself. Or another way of not holding certain people accountable. And so two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
And one of the things that truly feels unfair, it might be, we need to be honest about our healing in the midst of continual trauma.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah, we can't wait.
We don't have the luxury of doing one or the other.
Or the
we never had that luxury.
Right. Yeah.
And that means that we have to not stop doing our advocacy, not stop putting pressure on the system, but we also have to put pressure on ourselves.
Right.
In spite of the pressure we feel that's coming from other folks. That's about the bravest thing we can do for our children.
Mm.
The thing is that's got to be the center of what we do. How do we make it better for our babies?
Whether they're biologically yours or not.
That's right. How do we make it better for our babies?
I don't think that's where the focus is, man.
Well, the thing is if you are emotionally a baby, how are you gonna have a focus on a baby?
Right. Right. Or
You
you
know,
don't assume responsibility.
I know that's like, ooh, he calling us babies. In some ways, some of us are emotionally stifled at a level that some children have evolved past. There's babies out there's 10 and 12-year-olds who got more damn sense than us old people right now. And there's a certain amount of, and I was willing to believe about half of those ones, those 10 and 12-year-old, 14-year-olds, half of them are homeless because they told their parents, you're full of shit and you got double standards and you want me and you want me to listen to you when you can't live up to what you're telling me.
So you gotta go.
You gotta go. You too damn grown.
For being honest.
Right.
Oh boy. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, I know what's going on. It ain't about not knowing what's going on. Is we hurt, and then the thing is the bigger piece that makes it more complicated is the whole. And just looking at the United States, just United States alone, because we can go across the world, but the United States is full of its shit, full of itself. All of the covers has been coming off of the United States over the last several years about being the world power. Being the world power don't mean you know what you're doing. You could be the world bully and be called the world power. So you have that, and we live inside of that. Right? We're a product of that. Especially us with the the history of American slavery. And I always got to emphasize that because all black people don't have that history. And you see, and all of them don't have that history. And you see a different response to America from a lot of them.
Right.
So this is unique. We keep talking about we want to buy black, sell black, and all. Well, we need to deal with black in our trauma. We have a unique experience. We had a unique. You keep talking about how unique our experience has been. We have to deal with the full uniqueness of that experience, which includes our trauma.
Right.
And again, I look at it from that child. So say we put it like this: you being brought on the bottom of this boat as a slave, an African slave, an enslaved African to America. That is your birth to America. And if that experience, that history has been full of trauma, and then they tell you free, and within that freedom, they abuse you some more. How not that was going to affect how you deal with you and your children?
Right. Inevitable.
It's easy for us to understand that when we talk about the trauma of the Jewish community. And they're taking a look at that at a full length of how that's where they really came up with the whole term generational trauma, dealing with Holocaust survivors and their children.
Right.
You know, when you want to say keeping it real means not talking proper English, not saving your money, buying a lot of shit you can't afford, not holding parents accountable for their children and their guns. And I'm not saying you lock parents up, but folks know who is out here.
Right.
And then you want to be, what you end up with is another bunch of other scared people who carrying guns. I talk to young people all the time. Mr. What am I supposed to do? Right. I try to stay outside of that kind of stuff. We call ourselves a caring collective people. So, we like being around each other, and we don't like judging each other. But sometimes you got to, I can't be with you, can't be with you. And might have to learn how to be alone.
Right.
Or might have to learn how to get along with other people who don't look like you.
Yep.
You don't leave much options when you say whitey is bad. and again, there's got to be limits set on all of that stuff. When you don't know boundaries within your family. I was talking about dysfunctional families in one of my groups, and the group was getting upset with me. They were getting upset with me. You know why they was getting upset with me? Because everything I was describing as dysfunctional was their family.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got into, all families, no matter where they come from, can have some dysfunction. I'm not talking to all families. I'm talking to your ass. You already say all people ain't treated the same.
Right.
You already say they treat you unfairly. And because of that, there's certain things we need to do that we just need to do. And how do we evolve with that? And again, is this because everybody else is doing it? Why do we need to suffer because everybody else is doing it?
Right.
Only one person in the house everybody's got to agree with that one person. And that might be the craziest person in the house because they're bigger than us. That's dysfunction.
Right.
And I'm not, it's not an issue of you good or bad or whatever. It's just when if you can't do no better if you don't know no better.
Right.
Our trauma is not our fault. But it's our responsibility for the healing. You can't heal when you keep lying to yourself.
Right.
Especially when everybody around you, even Pookie and them know you messed up, and you're gonna keep denying it. And there's some ways to show compassion, but we want to talk about, we don't want, we got people talking about abolishing prisons and all that. And I understand that all or nothing response. All or nothing responses is a trauma response too, by the way.
Right. Yep.
But there's some young people who need to be locked down for a little bit. But when you the most compassionate thing you can do if you lock them down, though, is help them with their emotional response to life and help them through some of that truth piece around family. Give them the opportunity to talk about how it really did feel in their house. That when the adult who was telling you what to do couldn't live up to it.
Right.
But no, what we do is we lock folks down like animals and let them act like animals.
Right.
And then expect them to be something different when they get out. And then make it even worse is you got a system that does that, and then they drop these people, these broken people in a broken community into that community.
Right.
And then when we get into these situations, we're talking about using them same broken people to help other broken people doing the violence without helping them with their brokenness. And one of the great things about our keynote speaker, which, Akila, who's I call him a friend, we were more acquaintance because we haven't been around each other that much, but I respect his work. One of the things I really was impressed by what he said is, the work they're doing in Newark, and they got a piece around similar to interrupters. They said they also have a strong piece on dealing with these individuals' trauma.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they bring the trauma in the door with them.
Right.
But we want them to go out and stop other trauma. And then when you bring them in and you don't help them deal with the trauma they bring in the door, and then when they don't work out, you fire them and blame them for the trauma. Because we do this all the time. Well, we're gonna get people from the community, and we're gonna involve the community, and we're gonna make them advocates and help case manage and all like this, and they don't work out because you didn't help them with their trauma.
Right.
If I have survived in the hood, I've learned how to manipulate stuff, take advantage of stuff. And you put me in a position where you give me petty cash and then be surprised when I spend the petty cash?
Yeah.
Please. You're setting them up. But now you can say, well, we tried.
Right.
And it ain't just white organizations that does that.
No. Yeah, it's a lot.
If you cannot fix the whole problem when you're only dealing with half.
Right.
You want to deal with the outcomes of the trauma put upon you, but you don't want to deal with the trauma you bring with you. So, I don't know. I mean, so frustrated.
It's extremely frustrating, and you touched on several points there. And I think we talk about how do we help people move forward, how do we help the community. Any programming projects, initiatives, curriculum, whatever people are utilizing, from my standpoint, I think there's three things that have to be covered no matter what you're doing, whether with the staff or with the actual clients or participants. Is you have to make sure that the people have a level of comfort, they have to have a level of significance, why they matter, and they have to have a level of connection and belonging. And that security, that significance, and that belonging piece is huge. Whenever if you're not able to touch that for the folks who are doing the work and the folks who are getting benefit from the work, you are just opening an opportunity for nothing to get done, and the people who will just finesse for the resources and keep moving forward. Those are three elements that people utilize to drive themselves from one point A to point B. And I think what ends up getting missed in our community is that folks don't come in with that mentality that they want to get from point A to point B. They just want stuff right here, right now, getting right back to that survival stress management piece. And we have to, you have to do as much as you can to help shift that mentality and that mindset. Otherwise, it's not going to be as effective, and we're just going to stay where we're at. And let me back up. We're not going to stay where we're at. Things are just going to get worse because things are, with time, things don't just gradually get better. They can regress at the same time. And from what I'm seeing, just coming, out of this pandemic, is I think we've had some regression.
And the thing is it's not. If you're going to progress, it's not going to be without some pain.
Yep. Right. Yep.
Just like we accuse the white community and, they want to be comfortable, worried about their comfort, we want to be comfortable in a strange way too.
Yeah.
Right. And truth and healing hurts in the beginning. You got to deal with that.
Yep.
And so if you can't handle the truth, you can't handle the healing.
It's not easy, but it's something that we have to keep plowing ahead, especially for our babies. And I think that was an important piece of today's podcast that you said, we have to galvanize for our babies, for our children, because they deserve to have an opportunity at a better life than what we've had. And just that should be enough for us to move in a different direction or a better position for our kids. So that's going to wrap us up for another installment of the Healing Brothers podcast. On this Sunday, we will be back next Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Time. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and share the episodes if you find them constructive with other people that you care about. I'm Brandon Jones. This is Sam Simmons, and we are out. Peace.